Today we're going to factor by grouping, and this is not going to seem all that new because this is the method that we used to factor trinomials when there was a number in front. So this won't seem all that new. You do need to first check for a greatest common factor. Usually there will not be a greatest common factor, but sometimes there is. So because this first term doesn't have a number in front and the last term doesn't have a variable, there's no greatest common factor. So next we need to factor by grouping. So step 2 is to factor by grouping. And that's where we split this into 2 groups. Split it right after the second term, prior to the sign of the third term. Take a look at the first group. What do z cubed and 5z squared have in common? Z squared. And if we take z cubed divided by z squared, we're left with z. 5z squared divided by z squared is plus 5. What do negative 4z and negative 20 have in common? And reminder, whatever symbol you see here, that's the symbol that you want to drop down and use. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious, but always use the symbol in front of the third term. Negative 4z divided by negative 4 is z. Negative 20 divided by negative 4 is 5. Do you kind of remember doing this with trinomials?
Yeah.
So our factored form is, oops, I used 2 totally different colors, didn't I? There we go. Our factored form is z squared minus 4 times z plus 5. Remember, the previous line is the distributive property written out. Z squared times both of these is written there, and then negative 4 times both of these is written there. So you don't write the z plus 5 more than once, you only write that z plus 5 once. Okay, is this answer done?
No.
Z squared minus 4 is a difference of 2 squares. It factors further into z plus 2, z minus 2. Remember, the difference of 2 squares, you take the square root. So the square root of z squared is z, the square root of 4 is 2, and then you do plus and minus with those. And we have the z plus 5 at the end. That is the fully factored form. Are you ready to try B on your own?
Yeah.
Give it a try. If you're watching the video, pause the video, try B on your own, and then play to check. Okay, split it down the middle. The first group has x squared in common. The second group, if you don't drop this negative down and use negative 9, then you would end up getting negative x plus 2 in that second set of parentheses. Then your parentheses wouldn't match, and that would be bad. So make sure that you're using that negative in front of the 9. I added a little step on here. Step 3, are you done? If it says x squared minus a number, you are probably not done. There's probably difference of 2 squares and you'll have to do another step. If it says x squared plus a number, then yes, you're done, because we don't have a factoring pattern for x squared plus a number. Now, if it's 3 numbers, if it's a trinomial, yes, there's more we could do, but this typically gives us 2 binomials. So if it's x squared plus something, then you are done. So this one's not done. The square root of 9 is 3. This factors into x plus 3, x minus 3, and our x minus 2. Okay, I do want to go over C and D because there's a couple of like little weird quirks about them that I want to make sure you've seen. In C, after we split it, what do the first 2 have in common? X plus 4. I've heard some people tell me, well, the second group doesn't have anything in common. They do have a negative. You have to use the negative. They have a 1 in common. Negative x divided by negative 1 is positive x. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4. So our factored form is x squared minus 1 x plus 4. Are we done? No. This one is very commonly missed. Oops, I did not mean to do that. I want the highlighter. Thanks. What is the square root of 1? 1. So this factors into x plus 1, x minus 1, x plus 4. So there's two quirky things about this one. The first is that they have negative 1 in common. The second quirky thing is that x squared minus 1 is a difference of two squares that you can factor further. A lot of you think, oh, 1, that's like the smallest you can be, so you're done, but you're not. Okay, part D. Because there's a 3 in front, a lot of people think, oh, there might be a greatest common factor. But because the second term doesn't have a number in front, then there's no number that they have in common. And the last term doesn't have a y, so there is no greatest common factor. So we'd split it. The first two have y squared in common. And that would leave us with 3y, and then what? Plus 1. A lot of people forget to write the plus 1. Remember, if you were to distribute this, y squared times 3y has to give you 3y to the third. Y squared times 1 would give you the y squared. That 1 has to be there in order for that term to not just totally disappear. Then 9y and 3 have positive 3 in common. 3 divided by 3 again is 1. So this factors to y squared plus 3 times 3y plus 1. And those of you who hate how there's step after step after step, see how this says y squared plus? You're done.